Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Luffy was with Ace when he traveled to become a pirate? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. And also go support the Jinouga for writing that awesome fanfic. Let's start this video. That's the way to do it. Brothers sparring without the use of their own devil fruit powers. Marco yelled, standing beside none other than Whitebeard, watching the two boys brawl over who gets the last piece of meat. This would be much cooler if the reason wasn't about meat, another member of the crew said. Yeah, but those two are different, another guy said. I don't think the word different is enough, Marco said, all them of sweat drop. What the first mate have just said was true. What do you think? Marco said to Whitebeard while he began to stroke his mustache. Well, Ace, for one, is already part of the crew, and he might be as strong as you. Whitebeard took a mug and started chugging down the ale that was in there. I might make him a division commander. Those two aren't relying too much on their devil fruit, and that's what makes them 10 times stronger than any user. He added. What about Luffy? Marco was now seeing that there has been a but on that sentence. Whispering to his first mate, having 2D in my crew smells trouble. So much trouble he began to become a little desperate, remembering the times when those two had caused trouble or they were the trouble. Chuckling to what his captain just said. So, what are you planning? Well, I wouldn't throw him away. He's welcome to join us if he wants to, but like his brother, he's still so young. Let's hope for the best, shall we? Marco smiling to his father. MHHMM Whitebeard nodding in agreement. The crew gathered on the deck of Moby Dick, requested by their captain. Luffy, step forward. Newgate's voice was calm yet full of authority. As promised, when you hit the age of 17, you are now able to join my crew. Beside him, Marco was standing still, listening to his captain. Do you accept my invitation to join the Whitebeards? No. His response was simple, yet it wasn't as disrespectful as it sounds. Ace, who was one of the persons watching in the crowd, stood frozen in shock when they were both taken in by the Whitebeard. Luffy was all, I'll join, even if it kills me, though realizing that he's grown up so much back then, he could use the Conqueror's haki and has mastered it well. His powers, the Yami Yami no Mi, was as strong as his Miro Miro no Mi. He felt as if it was fate that decided that the two brothers will not be united in the same goal of reaching the island of Raftel. Ace was sad, yet he understood how his brother felt. I see, then what are you planning to do? Newgate questioned, though he could feel his answer. Luffy returned a smirk, and that assured him that his time raising this boy was not left to waste. Though he hated to part ways with one of his sons, sometimes we just have to let go of the things we loved. I'm gonna build my own crew and become the Pirate King. The boy said, full of determination, passion, and strength. As Luffy said his goodbyes to his brothers and sisters, Luffy and Ace both shed tears. It was saddening that these two brothers ain't going to be side by side. Luffy bowed in respect to Edward Newgate. Thank you for everything, Daddy said, and that break Whitebeard. Well, at least for a moment. The crew laughed by the sight that they all saw Edward Newgate, one of the Yonko, crying as one of his member yet non-member of his family is leaving. Take my ride, Luffy, Ace said, motioning his hand toward his private boat that's powered by his devil fruit. Be careful, you hear? Ace said, and giving his brother one last long hug. Boy. Remember, family is the thing that we all must treasure the most. Newgate using a little of his power to turn the tide of sea in favor of the young boy. Oh, and take this. Ace said, throwing a log pose. Go there first and take a ride towards East Blue, visit them for me. Ace waves his hand in goodbye. He smiled back and takes a look at the log pose. Alabasta, he said. It's supposed to be mine. I've searched my entire life for it. Calm down, he's just a kid and it was an accident. Calm down, I've finally found it all these years, and when I leave it for a few minutes it's gone. Like I said, he is just a kid. I'll kill you, the man said coldly. I'll kill you. That man's voice echoed in an endless loop, making the one who hears it go a little nuts. Luffy jerked his body, suddenly waking up from an old nightmare. Cold sweat ran through his body. He fell asleep while traveling towards Alabasta. Taking a deep breath, he tried to remember the man in his dreams, but miserably failed. Still panting slowly, he realized that Alabasta, or it was supposed to be it, was a desert, but huge walls can be seen even from afar. Good, a kingdom. I'm getting a little hungry, he said, docking his ship properly. However, something was wrong. Never did he saw a dock this empty before. It was like it was a ghost town. Only thing gave it away was the fresh fruit, fish, and other foods and supply that was still fresh. Grabbing one of the apple, he started chewing it whole. Ooh-vee. A voice said, behind Luffy, who still hasn't swallowed the apple. The man was taken aback when the boy in front of him vanishes into thin air, suddenly grabbing him from behind. What's going on here? Luffy said to the man in front of him. He was blonde and white, a little rare to see a person with these assets in a place so hot like this. Lately did Luffy realize that behind that man was a girl, not far from his age. They were escaping or running from something or someone. Get off me. The blonde man retaliate, but only to fail when Luffy grabs his collar and hold him up in the air. I ask you a question. He said in a commanding tone. Baroque works. Those bastards. There is a war going on, and I have to take the princess here too. Before he could say any more they were cut off by another voice. What about it, Miss All Sunday, shall I kill them now? A man with a weird taste for his hair said. He wore a brown jacket with a number 5 sign on its left chest. I want the princess alive, MR.5, we don't want MR.0 to get angry now do we? A woman said. She was beautiful, wearing a long white furry coat with purple jacket that the only thing keeping her ample breast was a few strand of strings and wearing a purple skirt covering her perfect thigh. Yeah, I want to get promoted too, you're a bombman too. Stop using your boogers, it's disgust. The girl wearing a huge yellow hat was cut off by Luffy. I'm talking here. Luffy said. Boy, do you know who are you talking to huh, kid? No, and do you know who are you talking to? He replied back, causing a little cold tingly feeling run down the bombman's spine. Miss All Sunday lets out a little chuckle that did not go unnoticed to Luffy. Do you want to die that badly, punk? MR.5 started picking on his nose. Thanks to that lady wearing a huge green hat talking about how is this man is a bombman, Luffy already got the idea of what he is capable of. He said, tossing his booger to where Luffy, Koza and the said princess was. Boom. A large explosion causing huge fire and destruction to where the three are. Acting all high and mighty and he just dies. MR.5 said with a victory smile on his face, but before Miss Valentine or Ms. All Sunday could say something about killing the princess, the fire that was supposed to bright turned black as if darkness swallowed that entire area. Did you just throw your booger at me? Luffy came out of the black fire that was engulfing him, with a smirk in his face. The 3 Baroque Works agents suddenly felt fear. Never did they see an opponent that controls black fire or worse darkness. Without a warning MR.5 was swallowed by the darkness too. We have to warn, Crocodile. Miss All Sunday somehow kept her cool, but is clearly on the verge of panicking. Miss Valentine suddenly floats towards the sky with Miss All Sunday, not without locking eyes with Luffy. For the first time in his life, his stomach is feeling butterflies in it. Weird. Shaking his head, there are more important stuffs to do. He looks back at Koza and the blue-haired girl who seems to have fainted. Please, help us. He pleaded, even an idiot could see the sincerity in his eyes, a man that will let down his pride only to protect someone. Luffy nodded and offered his hand to stand up. Get her out of here, I'll take care of everything, giving Koza a reassuring smile, the leader of the rebellion, and the princess moves further away from the kingdom and into the said safe place. Chichibukai Crocodile, interesting his smile, the smile that signs the greatest of warriors, have found a worthy opponent. Thud. You're all yourselves. He shouted, slapping Miss All Sunday so hard that she fell on the ground. It's all for my dream, she murmured to herself, on the verge of crying. She's so close to her lifelong dream. She kept her poker face and stands up. We have the king. A man showed up in the room, dragging an old man with fancy set of jewelry and clothes. Take us to the poneglyph, or your daughter gets it. Crocodile bluffs at him, not wanting the king to resist furthermore. He has had enough for today. A boy suddenly showing up and instantly killing MR.5, and these black flames, he felt like he has heard about that man before. The kingdom's army will soon fall to us, MR.0 he said. Good. MR.1, take care of the boy that Miss Valentine will be showing you, bring an army if you have to, don't underestimate him. Crocodile said, as he grabbed the king's neck. After you, king, he said sarcastically, who is followed by Ms. All Sunday. Are you scared, Shichibubukai? King Cobra said, coughing up blood as his beaten up body is being carried by Crocodile, deep in the grounds. If he is that man, then yes. Never did Miss All Sunday saw Crocodile in this state. He usually has the attitude that he is a god and somewhat invincible since he's a Logia type devil fruit user. Above to where Crocodile was, a battle was taking place, a battle that will decide the kingdom's fate. The soldiers who are fighting for the king was now losing their morale as one of their friends die each second. The same can be said to the rebellion, their fighters falling each second. MR.1 have just arrived at the battlefield. Agents of Baroque Works are hidden to both sides of the army, both being manipulated. As he continued to search for the man that his boss just ordered him to eliminate, he saw a boy. His outfit was standing out. He's wearing a black suit which was unbuttoned, a red shirt and a black tie. He was standing too much in the middle of the fight. Luffy was simply walking, people passing him by. To his side 2 soldiers fighting to the death, but he paid them no mind. Ending Crocodile will end this all. Is what he had planned. A man stood before him, a tanned man with a shaved head, wearing a sleeveless dark coat with golden edges and white motifs on the front, and has a white sash in his waist. What made Luffy notice him was his intent to kill. He could feel it directed at him. Luffy sighed, another problem has come up and he's too lazy to fight now. Mr. 1 started running towards the boy, then the boy shot his eyes wide open, and soldiers started to fall, as if they lose consciousness and just drops on the ground. At first MR.1 resisted it, his sight started to blur, and the boy who he was supposed to kill walked past him as if he was nothing. Your services are no longer needed, Crocodile whispered behind Miss All Sunday after deciphering the poneglyph in front of her. Miss All Sunday managed to dodge the hook only to where no vitals will be hit, but the wound she received was enough to kill her for loss of blood, if not treated immediately. You shouldn't treat Unikamas like that, was the last thing Miss All Sunday heard before losing all of her consciousness. You? How did you get here? Crocodile yelled, a little frightened as if he saw a demon. It hasn't been 20 minutes since he had sent MR.1 to eliminate him. Luffy tried to find an answer, but he just shrugged, adding, I don't really know, I was just walking, and I ended up here, he said. Shichibukai Crocodile, right? He said, tilting his head a little bit. Monkey D. Luffy of the Whitebeard Pirates. King Cobra's eyes widened, and Miss All Sunday regained a bit of her consciousness, just in time to hear him say, I'm no longer with the Whitebeards, plus how did you know my name? Luffy said, a little surprised that someone as far from the New World knew him. You and your brother, Port is D-Ace, your deeds of sinking 100 marine battleships have not gone unnoticed, though there were no pictures of you two. The rumors of fire and darkness has reached even the most remote place in the world. Luffy saw the woman, who was now regaining her consciousness, approaching her. He removed his jacket and gently placing it in Miss All Sunday. He gave her a smile that warms that woman's heart. Something was wrong with her. What are you doing, brat? Crocodile asking, preparing for the fight of his life. I'm gonna give you two choices. 1. Run and never go back. Or 2. Fall into battle with me. He said, while his hands were still at the shoulders of the woman he gave his jacket with. For a moment the two were in a staring contest, Luffy, who is calmed, and Crocodile, who's starting to sweat. Fine, I leave. Oh, and one more thing, you'll abandon your position as Shichibukai, Luffy added. What? Why? Crocodile asked in disbelief. The only way he operated Baroque works in the shadows is his cover of being a Shichibukai. Do it. The boy replied, and the formerly Shichibukai nodded. It has been a day of celebration in the kingdom. Luffy was of course invited, while Miss All Sunday remained in the infirmary in which she suddenly disappeared. Luffy being offered a drink by the soldiers around him, he simply chuckles and replied, I'm not of legal age, yet the boy was only 17, and even though he's part of the infamous Whitebeard, he has been taken care by Edward Newgate. He was a sorta a prince in the ship, being taken care of every little things, yet he was taught how to fight, and that was something he was good at. As for reward that King Cobra offered, he humbly refuses, and instead he said to let the missing Miss All Sunday go and a free travel towards East Blue. It's high in the afternoon, and it's only 2 hours before the ship he was supposed to ride towards East Blue leaves, and he still hasn't registered his little ship as a cargo. After quite a few minutes, he's all prepared. I finally get to see Makino and the others as well, he said, entering the room in the ship he was in. You're finally here, a woman, wearing a white shirt with black pants that so fitted for her, sitting there reading a book besides the bed. If Luffy was drinking anything at the moment, it was sure he'll spill it all over the room. Never bring a woman into your room until you're 18. Was what everyone in the ship said to him, especially his brother Ace, who kept on reminding him about stuffs that should never happen while he's not 18 yet. Miss All Sunday giggled, clearly seeing the boy's face. My name is Nico Robin, a pleasure to meet you, she said, smiling at the boy who's still frozen with shock. Shaking his head, what are you doing here? Well, you saved my life even though I did not ask you to, so you've got to take responsibility, she said, still smiling. The boy sitting in the chair was so stiff that the older woman in the bed, currently reading her book, can't stop to take glances at how innocent this boy is. Since he's standing there stiffened up, she already had a clue about the birds and the bees. It has been an hour since the boat has left, and it'll only take one night for them to arrive at East Blue. The ship that Luffy and Robin was in is so special that the ship is covered in kairoseki and is escorted by 2 marine ships. Taking a cough as if to get his attention, Luffy-san, I'll be taking a bath now, I hope you're not naughty, she said teasingly. I meant not. Stuttering, still he managed to reply. But she said, giggling her own way inside the bathroom. Their large tub with golden edges on it, clearly meant for rich people. Turning the water on, she then took off all of her clothes as she started to dip in the hot, steaming water. It was calm. For the first time in a long time, her life was calm. She then looked up towards the ceiling. Nobody had saved her from anything ever. Well, they did, but for something in return, her body. Fortunately for her, she's killed any man who's tried to better. She grew up that way. No family, friends, nothing. It was use or be used. For a very short amount of time, she thought her life was over, her dreams crushed. Only when she was this close that she realized that the poneglyph that she's searching for was not that. Then he came, the man that saved, or when she had given up, without a word, he just wraps his jacket around her, and after that, nothing. The boy who saved her asked for nothing in return. Do people like him do exist? The woman mused, enjoying the calmness that she was feeling, remembering what her giant friend used to say. The sea is so huge, someday you'll find friends that will protect and love you as much as a family does, she said, remembering every word he said. After a long time of relaxation, she finally got up. exiting the bathroom with only a towel covering her breast and her womanhood. Looking at the boy who was still sitting, she decided to use her devil fruit power. Summoning her arm on his shoulder, she started poking the boy's cheek, only to let his head tilt to the very side of his shoulder. The boy was asleep. Did he wait until I properly leave the bathroom? Whispering to herself, she blushed. Never had she saw a man be this gentle and caring to a woman, especially when just 2 days ago they were both enemies. She started sprouting her hands to carefully carry the boy into the bed. The bed wasn't huge enough for 2 people unless they are a couple snuggling at each other all night long. "Good night," she said, kissing his cheek as a reward. She turned off the lamp that lit the room, and not the moonlight was the only thing giving them a faint light. She then had an idea. Like a puppet master, she made the boy snuggled up to her, forcefully of course. She really is hoping to see what Luffy-san's reaction will be when he wakes up, but a part of her just wanted to be hugged by the warmth that she had sought for so long. "Biwaya." A boy screamed, then followed by a loud thud on the floor. Robin, who was beside the man, woke up from the loud noise. Mission accomplished, she thought. A sly smile crept in her face. But soon changed as she saw Luffy, panicking and panting, left and righty move. "What's wrong, Luffy-san?" It was just before she could finish, Luffy points into her breast. Her shirt was unbuttoned that a huge part of her cleavage can be seen. Then she chuckled. It was nothing at all. His innocence was on a whole new different level that some will call him a saint if seen. "Luffy-san, nothing happened. I felt bad that you were sleeping in a chair that I put you into the bed myself," she said, smiling and reassuring the 17-year-old boy that nothing did truly happen. "Good. Ace will kill me if something did," he added. "Shall we go get breakfast?" Robin asked. "Yeah, I'm getting hungry as well," and with that the two left the room and their luggage and headed towards the restaurant that is on board. Only a few hours before the ship dock. The ship dock, Luffy and Robin quickly took another transportation towards Fuchsia Village. "What's after Fuchsia Village, Luffy-san?" Robin wondered, a little scared. If the boy settled down in that village, would he accept her if he does? "Then I'm gonna be the pirate king," he said, smiling calmly. "He's here," he said, seeing a familiar pirate ship, a skull with a red stripe on its left eye. Before the door was opened, the bar that was clearly full of uncivilized people were shouting, and they could even hear some brawl, even with the loud noises caused by the singing of people and some bad puns. Now silence and nothing more. Luffy was standing beside a beautiful woman when he opened the door. Rather than be greeted by the people he knew, all of them had hearts in their eyes and started asking the woman beside him, including the captain of the ship. "Hey, Makino," Luffy said, calm, mature and a sweetness in his tone. Luffy," she said, hurriedly running towards him to give him a tight hug. Beside her was a captivated Shanks. Popping a vein, she immediately hit Shanks on the head, causing him a huge bump and a depressed look. The crew laughed heartily, soon a whole lot of them, including the red-haired captain. "Yo, Luffy, is Ace with you, and who is this gorgeous woman?" Shanks asked, causing the raven-haired woman to giggle and a cold, deadly glare from Makino. "No, I left the Whitebeards, or more specifically I turned down their offer," Luffy said, rubbing the back of his neck. "This here is Robin, my first nakama in my crew," he said proudly. Right now there was only 3 things that entered and run in Shanks' mind and to shock Robin, his crew. She thought. 1. You've turned down, Whitebeard. 2. Your crew. 3. Where did you find such gorgeous women? Seriously, where? Faking a cough to regain his composure. Your crew? Shanks added. "Yeah, I'd always dreamed to become a pirate king. How will I do that if I'm not a captain?" Luffy replied. Makino and Robin giggled. The boy was so right that he even said something so obvious that an idiot would even realize. The whole crew then started cheering, a new crew and a possible ally, not to mention trained by the Whitebeards. Shanks started laughing. It was something he'd already foresaw that once Baratie will take the throne of the Pirate King, yet he saw little in Luffy. He had always thought that Ace will lead the way. "Well said," the red-haired said, "and to congratulate you to your new crew member, here a straw hat that has been passed down to me by someone special." Luffy had doubts, taking a special item from his friend, not to mention a Yonkou, was something that can't be belittled. "But I don't think it'll look good on me with this suit," he said. "Then use it as an icon if you don't want to wear it," Shanks replied. "Robin, are you with me?" Offering his hand, he smiled at the raven-haired woman, which she happily takes. "Then from this day onwards, we will be known as the Straw Hats Pirates," he said, raising the arm of his nakama and the straw hat. As everyone in the bar got more rowdy than ever, one man from the red-haired pirates interrupts. Hey, he said, clearly drunk. "Did she even accept you? Or did you force her to become your crewmate?" he said, teasingly. "I'll follow him anywhere," Robin said. Her tone was somewhat declaring something. The crew fell silent, their jaws dropped. The boy didn't blackmail the beauty into his crew. For a moment Shanks and Makino looked at each other, then they both burst out laughing, followed by the crew as the man fell silent, hoping that she'd get Robin to join their crew. "You're a very lucky man, Luffy-kun," Makino said. The boy gave a confusing look only to cause Shank to laugh harder. The boy has no idea about love, he said, whispering to Makino. The woman laughed at Shanks' comment. Hours of drinking and laughing, it was finally time for the Shanks and his crew to leave. Shanks then waved his goodbyes and suddenly points to a certain direction, causing Luffy, Robin and Makino to look. A ship, enough for at least 5 person, it was small, but it was a ship nonetheless. Thud. Causing the 3 of them to look at their feet, 2 bags of gold, not big neither it is small. Makino, I'll see you soon. He said Luffy, I'll see you in the new world rookie. With that he wink and slowly vanishes from their sight. Rookie, huh? He said, chuckling to himself. 2 hours later and it was time for Luffy and Robin to leave as well and to start searching for crew members. Makino a peck on the cheek and Luffy boarded the small ship. Take care of Luffy, she wink. Makino's face was devious, it was as if she knew everything about everything. Robin, trying to hide the blush and keep her poker face on, simply nods and quickly turns away, boarding the ship also. Luffy waved his goodbyes and sat on the small deck. If third person was there it would somehow eat all the space that was left. The 2 of them was still breathing the fresh sea breeze before hitting the bed. The sun was going down much quicker today. Luffy-kun, I mean Captain-san, both for her was too good to use, so she quickly decides to only call her Luffy-kun when they are both alone. We really should get a new boat. With that bag of gold, we could find a good and durable ship, not to mention big. She said. Don't worry, First Matey smiles, I'd already planned to buy a new ship. He said, standing up and entering the inside of his ship. She quickly followed her captain, and her face was suddenly saddened as she saw the double-deck beds on the room. She was still quite hoping to tease her new captain. Well, I don't know how to cook, so I'll just hit the before the captain could finish. I can cook. She interjects, hoping that he'll stay awake till it was properly time to sleep. After a 30 minutes wait, she finally walks out towards the deck of the ship. Luffy's eyes was sparkling a little bit as he waited for the food. Oh, there's no meat, he said, as the food was served to her by Robin, who's wearing an apron. It was only a mushroom soup. Luffy tasted it and said that if meat was added it would certainly taste 1,000 times better, not that it wasn't delicious. Sorry, Luffy-kun, I'm not really much of a cook, she said, and after eating they talked about each other's past, mostly Luffy's. Where are we now? Luffy said, landing upon a coastline. The 2 of them could quickly saw the marine fort that was in the island, not that it was a problem, but if they called for help then that might be a little problematic. But something was wrong, there had been a battle here, a battle that the Marines had lost. They walked towards the town, yet for some reason everybody was happy. Could it be a simple pirate raid that hated the Marines? Or a rebellion, Luffy thought. He's returned. The pirate hunter has returned. A kid shouting happily, 2 others followed him, racing towards the marine base. Luffy and Robin nodded at each other, both agreeing, without a word, that they need to see this pirate hunter. So, where is he? Luffy said. Robin quickly pointed the man with 3 katanas on his sash, and he was green-haired. Luffy laughing, why is his hair green? He said. Robin shrugged, followed by a giggle, not because of the green hair, but because of his captain, commenting even the color of his hair. Luffy walked towards the pirate hunter, which he quickly noticed, followed by a poker face woman. Luffy stood in front of him and smiled. I've decided, you're joining my crew, he said, smirking, yet for some reason the people around him knew that his intention wasn't ill. This is my home, pirate, Shell Town. He said, drawing one sword, here are some of my brothers lives as well, drawing another sword. This is where I start to become a legend, drawing the third and putting it in his mouth. If you defeat me I'll leave you, if not you'll join my crew, Luffy said. What makes you think I'll join you? The green-haired man replied. Cause I said so. Smiling and taking a fighting position. Interesting, he said, suddenly charging in front of Luffy. While the green-haired swordsman said, 1 second he was facing the raven-haired boy and the next he was facing the sky. Legend, huh? Luffy crouching facing the green-haired man, that's some dream for someone who's staying and hunting weak pirates, he added. I lost, worst, I didn't even felt you touch me. The swordsman said. Luffy chuckled, there are more stronger people at me at the Grand Line, he said. A smirk ran across the man's face, and the world's greatest swordsman is there? He questions. We know each other personally, but not that close to even call him as my friend, Luffy replied. Robin was surprised yet again. First to Whitebeard, what's next? Well, you have a long way to go, longer should you decide to stay here, Luffy said, offering his hand for him to stand up and accept the deal. Fine for now, but I'll kill you at the first sight that you'll harm innocent people, the green-haired man snarls. Then we have no problem at all, Luffy said, laughing. Zoro, the green-haired man said. Rorano Zoro is my name. Shaking his hand, Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy, he grins, and this here is my first mate, Nico Robin. I don't like her. Zoro said, plain and cold. Luffy tilting his head while Robin smiled. Don't worry, it's our captain here that you'll follow. Erg. Luffy groaning, quietly as possible while the other 2 members sleep peacefully. What's wrong, Luffy-kun? Robin said, sprouting a mouth beside his pillow. Hey, can you stop that, it's really creepy, you know, he commented. Giggling fine, but you still haven't answered my question. I'm hungry, he said, shyly. Would you like me to cook for you? Nah, there's no meat in it. The woman snorted. Well, tomorrow we will hit a place called Orange Town, want to stop by and grab some food? She said. Yeah, and let's pack some too. Food was all this his captain could ever think of. Good night, Luffy-kun, she said, followed by a good night reply from his captain. Ugh, Zoro quietly groans. I'm gonna hate it here, he said. Oi oi woman, you said this was a town, how come that it's so empty? Zoro said, referring to Nico Robin. So it seems, Mr. Swordsman, I never thought you were so smart, she said, backfiring the green-haired swordsman. What gotten him more pissed was Luffy laughing at how he was burned, big time. Zoro snorted. I'm going to check the other parts, putting both hands on the back of his head. He started walking aimlessly. He's gonna get lost, Robin said. Nah, he's gonna be fine. He replied. Before Robin could say something, an explosion took place in front of the two of them. The two-person were caught by surprise, but both remained calm, to be honest, confused that a cannon would be randomly fired here on a deserted town. What do you think, Luffy, is it pirates? We'll find out soon enough. Loosening his tie a little bit. Hey, where's Zoro? He asked, seeing how it hasn't even been a minute since they've parted ways, plus a fire was shot that he should have heard quite well as they did. DSK, where are those two? Zoro talking to himself. I can't believe that in just 1 minute they're both lost. Ugh. Zoro started running towards where Luffy and Robin was. If you know, where are they? 5 minutes later. Zoro, there you are. Luffy said, pointing his fingers at Zoro. We've been searching all over for you. That's my line. He replied, still thinking that it was both his captain and his first mate that were lost. Robin stared at the swordsman with her usual poker face. The swordsman started to feel slightly uncomfortable. I hate women, Zoro thought. As the three walked deeper into the town, they heard a weird annoying laugh. Nearing the town square they saw pirates, and more of them. In the end of those pirates, a large tent followed by a trail of gold and one weird looking man, a clown in the middle of all those pirates. As the thought that this guy was hostage and made a fool of himself was very wrong, he was the one leading them. Listen, you bastards, Nami here has given us 8 million bellies. The captain yelled, followed by the cheer of his crew. Beside the captain a woman sat. She had a saddened face as if something big is troubling her. Luffy walking towards the captain, passing by crowds of pirates. Beside him was Robin and Zoro. Like Luffy, Robin remained calm, but Zoro on the other hand was now about to draw his blades. The clown who was laughing once more, it kinda made Luffy laugh and annoyed at the same time. You must be Buggy, Luffy said, putting both hands in his pocket. He stood in front of Buggy. Huh, Dorita Kusama. The captain yelled, with a dominant tone. Shanks, do you remember that man? He used to tell me stories about you and your little accident on how you've become that kind of devil fruit user. Shanks, my kinda remember, thought you were. Shanks. That bastard. I'll kill him. He started rumbling nonsense about how he'll kill Shanks and take his revenge for making him lose the treasure map and making him a devil fruit user. So, Buggy, are you taking this girl as a hostage? Luffy said, pointing to the one sad woman, now with a different expression. Quite the opposite, she's my little thigh. Wait. Who are you? He said. The parts of his body began to disassemble. Monkey D. Luffy, he said, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, and this here is my crew. Buggy started laughing, as well as the orange-haired girl, and was soon followed by everyone. Is something funny? Luffy asked. 3 of you? And you call yourselves a crew? Wahahaha, Buggy said. How about you, fighter? Luffy motioning his hand towards Robin. Don't you mean me? Zoro retorted. Not to offend you, but you're still weak, Luffy said plainly. Zoro felt insulted, yet for some reason he also knew deep inside that he has a lot to do before becoming the man he wants to be. It was just his pride that was hurt. He began to examine his captain. Even without words, Luffy would have won in their duel. Just from the aura that they are both emitting, his was nothing more but a candlelight, while his captain felt like a firestorm. If I win, she's coming with me, Luffy said. I'm trying to get the girl's name. Nami, she replied. And if I do, I'll take every gold you've got, your ship, and her. Buggy replied. Deal, plain and simple. Without a hint of doubt, Luffy accepted it. A few minutes was given to both sides as they prepare and talk to their fighters. Don't you dare lose, Luffy said, putting both of his hand to her shoulder. I got it, she said, winking at her captain, standing up to the town square, which is now cleared and every person watching is at its side. And with that the fight it began. That's not fair. Buggy said, still panting from the battle that had just happened. The fight didn't even last 10 seconds, Luffy replied back. She cheated. Buggy retorted. Flashback, the fight between Robin and Buggy. I hope you're ready to serve the great Captain Buggy, he said, then that annoying laugh again. He began to disassemble his body and floated in circles with Robin being the center of it. The raven-haired woman was just standing still. Those fleur grab. After that Buggy began to yelp in pain, different reaction from different people, Zoro was no exception. They all started to sweat at what the woman did to Buggy. She's a dangerous woman, the swordsman thought. She's a devil, another pirate shrieking in fear, as others agreed to what he had said. I can't look at it anymore. Captain. We salute you. One said, followed by Captain, oh Captain, and best of luck Captain. Luffy just laughed as Robin slowly won this battle. Buggy was in tears as he rolled over the floor, both of his hands were on his little Buggy. She crushed my little Buggy. Buggy yelled, still crying and taking a quick look at his manhood. Flashback ends. Well, a win is a win, Luffy said, or will you break your promise? Changing his tone and look into a more serious mode, which intrigued Zoro. Buggy gulped, and he started sweating with fear seeing a young boy and the black fire that surrounds him. FFFF fine. Take, her. He said cowardly, hiding behind one of his crew. Let me get my things, Nami said, into which surprised the Straw Hat seeing as how willing this woman is about to go with him. After a few minutes Nami returned and with a large sack behind her. There you go. She said, handing it over to the swordsman. I hate them, he said, groaning as he carried that heavy sack. Well, we better get a large and new ship. Nami said, seeing as how just one room with 2 double-decked beds in it. Yeah, don't worry, in our next stop we will buy one. Luffy said. One-san, Nami said, can I take the top bed? Sorry, this is mine and the captain's bed. Robin retorted, oh, and you may call me Robin. Okay, but can I still take this? She stopped and sweat drop, seeing at how her new One-chan glared at her, not giving up his or her bed. Okay, I'll go to Greenhead's side. Who are you calling Greenhead? Nami laughed, Robin giggled and Zoro on how he hated this. I'm back, who's next? Luffy returning to their room, wearing a boxer and a tank top. He may not be that muscular, yet he has quite some assets. I am next, Robin said. Nami gave a confused look while Zoro just rolled his eyes. This is most troubling, a man said, sitting in a long table along with other men and women sitting. We've had eyes on the demon child when he's with Crocodile, now we've lost it, not to mention Crocodile is resigning as Shichibukai, another man said. More troubling news, Black Flame Luffy has left the Whitebeard. All other people were shocked at the news they've heard, his whereabouts is unknown. Send Dracula Mihik to East Blue. If my intuition is correct, he has to visit his hometown, just like Garp. Everyone nods in agreement. It's clear that he's making a crew. Should he anticipate this move, have one Shichibukai roam each of the blue seas, the man replied. I smell trouble in the future, most of them sighed, other just remained sitting, but it's clear that a storm is coming. Send more marines to the Grand Line, stop them before they even started. Luffy said in a low tone, as he and Robin walked towards the shipyard looking for a brand new and sturdy ship. Luffy-kun, have you chosen anything yet? Robin said. How about this one? Luffy pointed a ship. It was clear that it was sturdy, not too big, 5 cannons on each side of the deck. The ship is more likely a commercial ship rather than a battleship. When they entered inside, it had a huge aquarium in the library that lighted the place, not too dim, but moody enough for some people that loves to read. The kitchen was fine as well, it already had silverwares, the kitchen was stainless steel, it will truly make you feel like you're in a 5-star hotel. It has captain's quarters, a large room, large bed, cabinet, drawers, and other stuffs that would make someone comfy. Well, the ship is perfect for a crew like them. Mister, how much for this ship? The boy said, after the two of them got out of the ship. The old man was kind enough to give them a discount, saying that it's perfect for a couple like them, though they may need a crew. Robin turned away, looking at the open sea just to avoid being seen in her crimson face, while Luffy paid the old man no mind. After buying the ship, the old man said to return by nightfall with the crew, since they were about to put the ship in the sea, and it'll take a hell out of time to do that. Since it's still midday, the two decided to eat lunch and then find Nami and Zoro. He's lost again, Luffy said, pointing at the green-haired man. He's looking at the buildings with great confusion drawn up on his face, as if he was marking them, or he'd marked them already, but got lost yet again. Robin giggled and said that if they should find Nami since Zoro is already here. Finding Nami wasn't as hard as they thought it would be. She was at the shopping district looking for new clothes. She also had bought some clothes for Robin, hesitating to accept at first. She accepted when Luffy commented on how she looked like after wearing that. After that they all ate lunch together and talk about some things, most of them girls talk, which made Luffy and Zoro ate more food. We will meet here at nightfall, do whatever you want till then, Luffy said. Where will you be? Zoro said, crossing his arms. I don't want to find you when you're lost again. Luffy chuckles. Don't worry, I'll go to the nearest inn, and I'm gonna take a rest. Fine, but don't think that I'll find you if you're lost, Zoro replied. Fine, Captain, Luffy said in a sarcastic tone. Captain-san? Playing with her fingers, may I follow you? I'm quite tired as well, she smiled as Luffy nods at her. Zoro gave her a glare. Woman, he thought, seeing that this woman Nico Robin can't be easily read. Zoro worries a little for his captain, who seems to trust her too much, that is. Hey, what's with the captain and Robin, One-san? Nami asked. Zoro simply shrugs. That woman, I can't read her at all. The woman has got to have her secret. She winks at Zoro, then throws a large bag at him. Come, I still have more shopping to do, she said. Secrets who? Wait. Why do I have to go with you? Zoro retaliated. What was that, Zoro? Looking back, she simply said that with a smiling face, but a demon's aura behind her. Forming up F-fine dropping a sweat, Zoro was forced to do shopping with Nami, yet another reason to hate women. We still have 4 more hours till nightfall. Here, get a room. Luffy offering her bellies to rent her own room. I was wondering if I could join you, or I mean in your room, just gonna read a book. She smiles at him. Okay, he said. Walking towards the reception desk room for one, giving the bellies at the woman, and other staff came in telling to follow her to their room. Once they arrived, the room was simple yet comfortable. For a few bellies, this wasn't as bad as they thought. Without one word, Luffy jumps into the bed and started snoring. There was a chair at the rear end of the bed which Robin gladly sat upon. A few minutes had passed since Luffy started sleeping, and the raven-haired woman can't stop throwing a few glances at him. Standing up, she sits on the bed beside Luffy's head. There she straightened her foot into the bed and putted Luffy's head on her lap. She can't seem to stop smiling as she stroked the black hair of the boy. Truly, she was glad to be living at that very moment when she was with Luffy. Luffy started jerking, sweating so cold that his entire body felt like it was made of ice. No was the word he keeps repeating, and sorry, his body jerked more violently this time. Robin, who fell asleep as well, felt Luffy. There she watched as her captain suffers a terrible nightmare. She leaned her body more closer to his. There she grabs his head and wrapped it up with a warm hug. And it seems to have worked very well. Luffy stops his shaking and returned to sleep normally. There she realized that their captain might be hiding some past behind him, like her, who just wants to get away from it. She was truly happy for herself that it was her who made stop her captain's nightmares and not another woman. Robin, wake up. The woman started to groan as she starts to wake up. Her eyes shot opened, she fell asleep while hugging Luffy, and someone woke her up. She started to panic deep inside. Luffy-kun, she smiled, but before she could add anything, the young man interjects. Mon, you should have told me you were tired as well. You really should have rent a room, he said, patting her head. Luffy just finished bathing himself. He was wearing his black suit pants, well naked and still wet on top. His hair was dripping wet also. I just suddenly got tired, sorry, she said. Well, you should have just sleep beside me, he said. Luffy, you really shouldn't say things like that casually, especially if you're half naked, she thought. I'm fine, Luffy, thank you though, she said. Well, it's about time we go to the ship. Let's meet up with them. Robin nods. As soon as Luffy finished, and after her bath, the two has left the building. Zoro, what happened to you? Luffy yelled, seeing the green-haired swordsman, well, almost like a zombie. Zoro replied. Captain Sand, he's too tired to even say a word, Robin said. Come on, he's not that bad. I mean, we did just finished shopping, Nami replied, showing the stuff she bought. She even bought a shirt for Luffy and Robin that's so familiar that it's like those couple shirts. Well, it really was a couple shirt. Anyway, let's go to the ship, Zoro. I'll lend you a hand, he said, forcing himself to stop laughing at the sight Zoro had showed them. Did you shop all this time? Robin whispered to Nami. Yeah. She retorted, stretching her body. She too felt a bit tired as well. A woman to the bone, she thought to herself. Whoa, they all awed as they entered the ship. It was more beautiful than the first time Luffy and Robin saw it. You guys go to sleep, I'll steer the ship, Luffy said. What if there's something wrong? Nami said. Don't worry, it's no so big that I won't be able to handle it, he smiled back. Dear Nami throwed him a coat, a furry one, truly made for someone who's feeling the night's cold. Luffy then smelled it. The scent of newly bought items was good for any of us. Robin, feeling a little jealous, she offered Nami and her to go to bed together. She agrees, and Robin gave her goodnight to Luffy. Well, Usopp, I'll finally see your son, smiling as he steers the ship towards Syrup Village. However did we got in a situation like this? Robin said sarcastically. Surrounded by the great use of pirates, she added. Why yeah, that's right, pirates. Surrender now or face my 100,000 army, a boy of a long nose shouted. Standing on a cliff, he looks down at the Straw Hat Pirates pin, pointing them to leave the island before they face his wrath. Boy, Luffy, is that him? Zoro whispering to his captain. Yeah, Luffy said, a bit disappointed that one of the greatest sharpshooters alive has a coward son, not to mention a terrible liar. Okay, we surrender. The captain of the Straw Hats yelled back. This is just sad, Nami muttering to herself, but that didn't go unnoticed to the one San she was with. Robin simply giggled. This may be fun, she thought. Before arriving at Syrup Village, remind me again, why are we going to this place? Zoro said. His intentions were clear, he's just so lazy and wanted to sleep all day. Usopp is a friend of mine. He said I should take his son with me when I've started looking for members, and who knows, we might find a chef there as well. Well, a chef does sound good. Rather than letting this two womb before Zoro could even finish, she could feel Nami's glare, which made him shiver, and for Robin, that poker face made him more pissed off and more uncomfortable around women. I'm going to sleep in my room, he said, avoiding the looks that Nami gave him. There it is, Syrup Village, Luffy said. Seeing the island, it was small that you wouldn't thought that Usopp, a high bounty pirate, lives here. 4 days at sea and it already makes my feet want to feel the ground, Nami said, grabbing her papers and some pencils. Nami, what are you doing with that? Luffy said. Oh yeah, didn't I already told you guys? I'm a bit of a navigator myself, she said proudly. An hour later they finally landed. The moment the crew stepped into the sandy coast they were greeted with rocks falling down from the cliff above them, hundreds of banners raised from the bushy cliffside. Captain San, there are only 4 people in that cliff, 3 of them are just kids. Robin said, using her devil fruit powers she managed to spy the enemies. So, you're Usopp that I've been hearing so much about, Luffy said, he and his crew in chains as they walked towards the village. Yo, you have, Usopp's jaw-dropping. I mean of course you have, he said, making it loud so that the 3 children with him will hear him, which they did. Their eyes sparkled in amazement as Usopp continued lying about how he has faced monsters of different shapes and sizes. Luffy chuckled as he listens to Usopp. He's been at the New World and not once did he saw monsters like that. Usopp sends his regards, Luffy whispered. Usopp froze for a moment. You know my dad? He said. Yes, he's with Shanks of the red-haired pirates, he replied. Usopp knew at that moment that they weren't enemies. Heck, if they were enemies he didn't even know how to fight, and it's clear to him that Luffy and his crew just got along with him for fun. Letting the chains loose, he suddenly changes his voice. Help me, he cried as he bent a knee, talking about a girl named Kaya and how her servant is a traitor, not to mention a pirate. Boy, stand up, Luffy said, helping Usopp stand up. He and his crew march forth towards Kaya's house, or mansion I mean. After few short conversations with the guard, the crew failed to enter the mansion and meet Kaya. Usopp had another plan in his mind, a tree beside the house, there he climbed and was able to reach Kaya's window. Luffy looked up and saw that the girl was sick because she hasn't gotten out that much, her body slowly failing its purposes. Kaya smiled as she listens to Usopp's never-ending stories, she wanted to see the world so much. That soon changed when one of the guards found out Usopp. He quickly climbs down and runs towards his house. Usopp, you like that girl didn't you, Luffy said, startling Usopp who sit at the corner of his room. She's sick, Luffy, I can't do anything about that, he said, his voice was starting to break. How long has it been since she was last seen outside, running and having the fun of her life? Luffy questions him. I can't even remember, since her parents died she stayed inside her house, and the people there always told me she was sick. I'm not a doctor, but even I will always be sick when I stayed inside the house and do nothing all day, Luffy said. What do you mean? Usopp began to wonder where Luffy was going with. Sleep for almost 3 days, wake up and what will you feel? Your eyes will be sensitive to light, body will be a bit weak. The long-nosed boy started to get what Luffy was talking about, correct? Imagine if you let your body sleep for years, he smiled. No. Kaya yelled inside the mansion, her guards, butler, maids, are all dead. Hey Kaya, an old man tried his best to call for the girl who's crying. The girl approached the old man, it's Clahater. After saying that the old man has left this world and has moved on, Kaya started to run outside Usopp. She yells again and again as she runs towards the town. I've been in that damn mansion for 2 years, it's time to take what's ours. Kuro, formerly known as Clahater, the caretaker of Kaya, shouted as his crew landed on the other side of the island. Kaya was able to reach Usopp and Luffy, she told them everything. Luffy then called out for Nami, Robin, and Zoro. Usopp told them of Kuro's plan, he's been spying the caretaker for some time now. Kaya in disbelief when the first time Usopp told her of Clahater's treachery, she didn't believe him. They've stopped as they saw the crew of Kuro, they've just finished arming themselves for the fight that's to come, little did they expect to fight Luffy and his crew. Kuro thought that the townspeople will be the only problem, a small one if he might add. Oh, why you guys get out of here before I kick you butt. Usopp stutters, too frightened to speak normally. Kuro and his crew laugh, so hard that most of them got teary-eyed and aching stomachs. Boy, Kuro, you guys will leave now. Luffy said. That moment Usopp started to admire Luffy, a captain who surrendered to him a while ago, the one who told him of Kaya's possible illness, not to mention that he was fun to be with, or so he thought. I've wasted my time in that house, all of its treasures will be mine. Kuro said, I'm Kuro of 100 plans, my plans doesn't fail. He yelled, arming himself with claws for each hand. Then he vanished in thin air. Zoro narrowed his eyes waiting for the right time to strike. Robin surrounded themselves with eyes, and if I might add a shriek from Usopp, seeing eyes on the ground was really creepy. Nami began to hide behind the Zoro, being the only one with swords he's the most logical choice. Luffy closed his eyes, same as Zoro, he too waited for the perfect time to strike. Die. Kuro yelled, appearing behind Luffy. Luffy? Usopp, Nami, and Zoro yelled. Kaya was too speechless to say anything, but a Robin just smiled as Kuro slashed his claws into Luffy's back. Everyone, including Kuro, was speechless, his claws definitely hit the boy's body, yet there was no wound, no blood, and his body turns black. Luffy suddenly grabbed Kuro's face and lifted him up. You know, being a Loja type sure has its advantages, he smirked. I can't kill him in front of them, the boy thought. The black flames wraps Kuro's arms and feet, the man yelled in pain. Usopp and Kaya hugs each other as the Kuro pirates started to leave the scene. Robin, take them out of here. he said in a low voice. Zoro's brow arched for he heard what his captain said. The woman nods and invited them all to return to the town and celebrate. Look, Luffy said, jerking his head towards the ship's location. Kuro's eyes widened as he saw his own ship burn down by a flame of black. His crew started to abandon the ship, but alas, the fire was like a living thing. A few moments everyone was engulfed in the black fire. Any last words? Luffy said. My plans cannot fail. The loud shout slowly began to vanish as Kuro of the 100 Plans was eaten by a black fire, a fire that leaves nothing in its wake, no ash, no bones, nothing. Little did the captain of the Straw Hats know that Zoro was watching. At least the people he killed were pirates. Still he stops and walks hastily back to town. Few minutes later, he's lost. I should have joined them when they returned to the town. Arrghh. Annoyed as hell, the swordsman was truly lost in the small island. After a day of weeping for the fallen men who was working for Kaya, it was followed by a celebration of the traitor's defeat. Like the other, Usopp asked Luffy what happened to Kuro, and like the others he said he'd have him swim towards his ship. They've all laughed, except for the swordsman. While he thought. The next morning the Straw Hats prepare their ship. They were leaving. Usopp, who was with Kaya, stand at the shore where the ship Luffy was on. They waved their goodbyes but was answered by a confused Luffy. What are you talking about? You two are coming with me, Luffy said. Eh? Was all the two could say, but we already have a ship. The Going Merry. Usopp has agreed to take me into different places. Then come with us. That's what we are doing, Luffy replied. What about the Going Merry? Kaya asked. Well, if our crew has gotten bigger then I'll come back and get that ship. Smiling, Luffy jumps out from their ship and dragged the two towards it. Ooh, but it'll be a burden. I'm still studying to become a doctor, Kaya said. Usopp remained quiet. Deep inside him he wanted to come, and half of it is to be together with his love. Then study while you're with us. Nami or Robin could surely help, seeing as how they cannot argue with Luffy. Kaya and Usopp stared for a moment, then just laughs it off. Oh, what the hell, let's go. Kaya said cheerfully. Never did Usopp saw her this active. Night falls and the rest of the crew slept. They've had no spare of bed in the girls' room and has to buy tomorrow. Luffy said that Robin may sleep in his quarters since he was on watch duty later. Thanks, Usopp said, standing behind the captain who was on watch duty. For what? He replied. For making Kaya happy. Usopp replied. Luffy burst out from laughter. I'm not the one who's made her happy, you did. But nothing. Sleep now, Usopp. I'm so hungry right now that I could eat any meat, he said. The two shared a moment of laughter. Usopp says goodnight to his new friend and captain. The Straw Hat crew started to wake up one by one. Zoro and Usopp shared the large boys' room. Kaya and Nami slept at the room which was supposed to be Nami and Robin's. The room was huge, but it lacked one more bed for the newly arrived female. They all got out one by one and saw none other than the captain, who was supposed to be on guard duty, yet he was sleeping in an awkward position. Wake up, you're supposed to be on guard duty. Zoro said, kicking him in the head, only to kick the hard wood that is the ship. The swordsman shrieked in pain. He had forgotten that his captain was a Loja type. It hurts. He yelled, groaned and shouted some bad words. Usopp laughed only to receive the face of a mad swordsman. The coward run and hide behind his awoken captain. Oi, Zoro, what are you doing? Luffy said. Before the green-haired man could reply, Luffy's stomach started to growl, loud enough that it can be heard a few miles away from their ship. He too, like Zoro, shrieked in pain, yelling I'm hungry. Rolling on the floor like the swordsman. The entire crew laughed. Usopp then saw another ship not far from where they are now. But as they got a better view, it looked like a floating huge structure rather than a boat. Baratie the long-nosed said. I heard it was a fancy restaurant here in East Blue, right, long-nose kun? Robin said. I've only heard that it serves deli. Wait. Who are you calling long nose, you beautiful woman? He said, hoping that it would piss the older woman. Thank you, long nose kun, she replied. Oi, that looks like a compliment rather than an insult, Zoro said. See, even Mr. Swordsman here know that it's an insult, Robin said, sarcastically. What's that supposed to mean? Zoro yelled. Boy, he was pissed. They all laugh except the captain, who was facing a life and death situation, whether he can survive the hunger that he's feeling before they reached Baratie. Oh, the Straw Hats entered the Baratie, not too big yet too fancy inside, they all thought. Luffy sits on one of the free tables and happily waits for his meal, like a kid who's gonna be fed by his mother. The older woman can't resist a giggle. He looks like an angel when it comes to food, Zoro said, receiving a yeah, you're right from Nami and Usopp. Kaya was on Luffy's left and Nami to his right. Robin was forced to sit between Zoro and Usopp. A frown was drawn on her face as the food was delivered by a blonde young man. The moment he arrives at the table changed their world, forever. Mademoiselle. He said, using an accent that might be unknown to every man on the planet. His eyes turned into hearts. His smile was truly creepy, especially if you're a woman. Zoro rolled his eyes. Another weirdo has appeared. Boy, serve us the food, hentai, he said, with an annoyed voice. What the hell are you, a Marimo? The blonde said. You want to go at it, perverted cook Marimo, or Zoro said. The cook then suddenly stopped, getting a better view. Luffy saw that his eyebrow was curly. "Hey, why's your eyebrow curly?" he said, full of expectation that the cook will reply him. "But that is the way of love," he said, lighting a cigarette. "What did I say about smoking in here?" An old man said, with a weird and long mustache. It was braided like Vikings did with their beard. I didn't mean to." Boom. The door exploded with such force that it had sent a few people to the other side of the restaurant. "You will feed my 100 men, or I'll sink this thing myself," the man said. He was big, wearing a large golden armor and a bandage around his head. "You dare come here and destroy my restaurant?" Zeph shouted, but before he could walk towards the armored man, the blonde cook puts a hand and walk in his stead. He lighted his cigar and said about respecting food and the women in here. The man laughed and laughed. He tried to punch the cook, but his armor was too heavy that his strike was slow. "He's fast," Zoro thought, narrowing his eyes, watching the blonde man circling the golden armored dude, looking for a weak spot. Luffy simply smiled. "Sanji?" Zeph yelled, referring to the young blonde man. He was caught by another man that entered through the door. Don Krieg, demands that you'll cook food for my men, or I'll kill this little boy." Sanji struggled, but a knife was pointed at his throat, rendering him useless. Don Krieg walked outside the restaurant, where a platform is connected as if it was used for docking. Everyone got out of the restaurant to watch, others simply run towards their ship and set sailed, hoping that they'll live another day. "Zoro, save him," Luffy commanded. Nami, Robin, Kaya, Usopp, and he himself stood there watching. Zoro dashed his way towards Krieg. Clang. 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 Here and there Zoro slashed his swords, but to no avail. It didn't even scratch the armor that he was wearing. "Santoryu, Onigiri." The swordsman was forced to use a special technique on his opponent. This got Don Krieg some small cuts. He then started to tell his story about him returning to the Grand Line. Miracle Mihawk was what caught Zoro's attention. He spoke of Mihawk with great power, yet despised him for killing his men and sinking most of the ships that was with him. Then Don Krieg suddenly insulted Zoro at how he was so far from his level. "Robin," Luffy said, nodding at the raven-haired woman. It was as if a signal to move. The woman suddenly sprouted arms on the enemy's shoulders save for Don Krieg, knocking out his entire crew. Luffy stood beside Zoro. Krieg was rumbling at how unlucky he was. Then he started panicking when he saw a chairboat with candles floating beside it. Like Luffy, the rest of them looked at the approaching figure. Don Krieg saw that his men was knocked out and last saw that it was only the raven-haired woman who made a move. His armor started to sound like it was changing gears. Small cannons and guns appeared, all pointed towards Robin. The sound of Don Krieg firing all of his weapon caught everyone's attention. "Robin!" Luffy yelled, desperately reaching his hands towards her nakama. Should he be a rubber man, he could save her now by making his arms long and push her out of harm's way. But no, he wasn't a rubber man. He was a yummy ninja, darkness human. What could he do to save her? Darkness is gravity. The power to pull everything in and spare not even a ray of light. Infinite gravity is what the boy last heard in his head before everything turned black. A wall of darkness rise up from the platform, protecting Robin and everyone else in it who was on the bullets and shells trajectory. No sound came after that, the sound of bullet hitting a wall or a cannonball exploding. The wall prevented anyone from seeing anything beyond it. "Nobody hurts her, or my friends," Luffy said, his entire body covered with an aura, a dark one. With a single sway in his hand, the bullets that the darkness swallowed came out of the wall again, but this time it was pointed at Don Krieg. Bullets pierced his indestructible armor with great speed. The bullets was 100 times more stronger than it usually is. Don Krieg's eyes was pure white, coughing up blood and holes that goes through his body. The man falls into the water. With a loud splash, everything was over. Luffy loses his consciousness, not from fatigue, but from something else, something that exhausted his mind or spirit. A few minutes later the wall vanished and Luffy already started to wake up, making Zoro and Sanji the only ones seeing how Luffy acted. "What the hell was that?" Zoro said, as he let go of Luffy's now stable body. "I don't know," he said. "Sanji, you're coming with them." Zeph yelled, "After the wall vanished you've been nothing but trouble," he said, yet his voice was starting to crack. Before Sanji could say anything, Mihawk stood at the Don Krieg's huge ship. "Mihawk, I hereby challenge you into a duel," Zoro said. Mihawk said nothing except he landed on the platform and walked towards Luffy. "He was my kill," Mihawk said. "Yeah, good to see you too," he replied. They're speaking normally, yet the air felt so heavy for the rest of them. "You've taken my prey." Luffy of the Whitebeards, Zeph and Sanji jerked a little, the rest of the people watching, and runs back inside. "I'm not part of the Whitebeards anymore," Luffy replied. "And how about you fight this guy? He looks at you with a strong intent to kill," he added. "Size, you just want him to learn from me," Mihawk said, drawing a sword or a knife. The necklace he was wearing was actually a small knife. He said. "I'll make you draw your sword." Insulted, Zoro dashes towards him. "Ed," Mihawk said, dodging Zoro's sword and pointing a knife at a vital part. Zoro didn't stop striking, he kept swinging his swords. Dead he dodges again dead once me he dodges Zoro's attack de Santoryu, Torigari. Zoro said, as Muak was about to say dead once more. Wonderful what is his name? Mihik asking Luffy, looking at the unconscious Zoro. He made me draw my sword he added. Urano is Zoro, and he plans to take your spot he said, grinning at Mihik. The best swordsman couldn't help but smile at Zoro. I'll be waiting for him at the Grand Line, and I'll bring news of your newly found crew sitting on his chair. I am a Shichibukai after all. Well, that takes out the element of surprise he said. Nami, take care for Zoro. There was no response. Nami? Luffy said. Robin shrugged not knowing also as to where Nami did go. Usopp and Kaya also didn't saw her, they were all too distracted by the commotion that has recently happened. Sanji and the rest of the staff of Baratie all cried before Sanji could climb aboard the ship. I'll find all blue. I promise. He said, still crying the swordman tch causing a vein to pop at the chef's forehead. What was that, Marimo? Huh? You said something curly brow. Luffy was in his quarters, Robin opened the door and came in as well. She betrayed us Luffy said, and she's taken all of our money. I'm sure there's an explanation Robin said, putting an arm around his shoulder. Luffy was sitting on the couch, and so was Robin. The boy was too confused as to why Nami left them that he didn't realize the head resting on his shoulder. For the older woman this is fine for now, one step at a time. Luffy, we kinda know where Nami is. Usopp entering the room, seeing the captain and his first mate in that position. Really where? He said, standing up. ZZ Zoro's friends is outside Usopp said, running back towards the deck, frightened. Luffy gave a confused look, little did he know that Usopp received a spine-tingling shattering glare from Robin, ending her moment with Luffy. Robin soon followed Luffy outside, giving Usopp the same glare she gave him a few moments ago, and it may last for quite some time. Robin swine. Sanji yelled, making a cup of coffee. Orange Town, I last saw her heading towards Orange Town. One guy said Aniki, we thought you were gone. Another one said, as the two of them crying at Zoro's foot, hugging it. I see, Marimo likes the dudes. Sanji said, devilishly smirking at the swordsman. You're wrong. Idiot. He replied and get off of me. Kicking the other two, as they kept on crawling back to their Aniki. Luffy sat at the deck with Robin and Sanji dancing and saying something about finding his true love, which quickly changed when he saw Kaya. Let's get her back, shall we? Robin said. Yeah, she has our money after all Luffy said, jokingly. Who are you two again? Usopp asked, as the two kept clinging on Zoro's leg. They're friends with the Marima the instant Sanji said that, Zoro launched his head toward Sanji, which he also responded the same way. Ah. The two rolling on the floor, feeling the pain of two heads collide against one another. The rest of them started laughing at the show that these two men have given them. These two will get along just fine the rest of them thought. Luffy on the other hand was still bothered by Nami's betrayal against them. What could be her reason, or does she have a reason at all? Starting feel that the woman was just a regular thief who abused his nakamas. No she wasn't like that, the smile that she shared amongst them wasn't fake either. So why? He muttered. His troubled face didn't go unnoticed by Robin, the boy was so deep in his thoughts that he hasn't realized the stare which Robin was giving him. She didn't like how Luffy was taking this, though he did look more cute when he's all serious, she didn't want him saddened. It was the same for her, she was also hurt inside seeing Luffy in pain, and what's eating her thought is that it's another girl that's the reason. Luffy, she whispered, the boy took a glance at Robin, only to meet two hands guiding his head towards her lap. Sleep she said, smiling at him. But. He tried arguing with her. No buts, I'll wake you up when we arrive she said, no use arguing with her, he finds a comfortable position and drifted to sleep. Boy, Luffy, take a loo Usopp's voice was so loud, it could be heard up to Raftel. Suddenly silenced by the glare of Robin, a glare that could pierce your heart and left you standing there, frozen with fear. Feeling a shiver running down his spine scary Zoro thought. Usopp's sudden silence got Sanji who's flirting with Kaya. Iwuo. Rushing to Luffy, the blonde cook was raging mad at the sight. How could Luffy do this to her Robin Swan? Hoi, idiot, Washington this time it wasn't a glare that silenced Usopp. Robin used her powers, sprouting an arm on Sanji's shoulder, clutching his head. Ahaha Zoro laughed, as the unconscious body of Sanji was twerking, with happiness or not it was funny. Zoro felt two arms sprouting on his shoulder wait oi. Like a radio, which volume was on the highest it could be, Zoro shut down like a machine which was suddenly unplugged. Aya giggled and told Usopp that they should go inside, as well as carry the two fallen men. And there it is, she has Luffy all for herself. Nami no, the world can wait until she's satisfied. The woman shot a few glances at the windows of the ship, no one is there. Blushing a little, she stole a kiss on Luffy's cheeks. Wait, I'm a mature woman. Surely I can do better than that she thought. Repeatedly kissing Luffy on the cheeks, as each kiss moves closer to his lips. Slowly she kissed, pulled back, and kissed again. Not wanting to rush the moment she was having. This is at his lips. 1-2 thr. Sayanji. The boy suddenly shot his eyes, standing on where he was laying down few seconds ago. I'm hungry. He shouted, storming up inside the ship. Seeing he was with the swordsman, he hit their head together until the cook was awake. It hurts. Sanji yelled. Why, it's morning already? Zoro said, clueless to what had recently happened to him. Sanji, food. He said, his stomach was growling, and as the seconds passes by he got weaker and weaker, as if his life force was being sucked out. Boy, did you sleep too? Zoro said. Luffy nodded even when his life was in danger of hunger. You have something wet on the side of your lips to your cheeks, he said, pointing a bit disgusted at how much Luffy did drool. It's not noticeable except for the swordsman. Luffy wiped his hand, his cheeks were indeed a bit wet, but did his saliva ever tasted that sweet? Shrugging the thought, he walked towards the dining room, where the kitchen was also insided. While eating, the crew felt something. No, someone was missing. Where's Johnny and Yosaku? Zoro said. The entire room was enveloped in silence. They shot a glance at each other, hoping that one of them would know. Well, Luffy said, ignoring the two missing people. Then the rest followed him and resumed to eating their food. Luffy, would you like some of this? Robin asked. It's chicken meat, and I'm the only one who has it. Sure. He said, happily. Say ah. The older woman said. Sanji stood up, about to overreact again, remembering what has happened to him. He sit down, quietly, and pouted, tears running down his eyes. Luffy bastard Roswin, my love, he kept saying as he continued his crying. It's delicious, Luffy said. After eating, they finally saw an island. It was already dark and they've decided to find a land and set up camp, should there be no towns nearby. Landing on the coast, they saw a town right in front of them, devastated, and it was clear that it was no accident, and it was clear that it smelled like pirates. The attack was just recent, Luffy said, observing the area around them. And no cannon was used. Zoro said, which means we go a pretty strong opponent here. He said excitedly. SSSS strong, opponent. Hehahaha, fear not, Captain Usopp is here. Stuttering while his body was shaking so violently some would think he'd pee his pants. Yeah, the three guys said in unison. Kaya giggled at how his brave Usopp is handling these new things. You guys, it's dangerous to be here. A voice said, whispering yet loud enough for us to hear. After a few conversations with her, the crew then asked for a woman who goes by the name Nami. Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy narrowed their eyes as she suddenly moved back a little. Don't worry, we're his friends, Kaya said, gently as possible. You should follow me to my house. Oh, by the way, my name's Nichiko. Nami's older sister, she winked, leading us into her house. Morning came as the sunlight hits the face of the Straw Hats. Luffy could still remember what Nichiko said about Nami buying this town, no, the entire island, from a pirate group led by a man named Arlong. Luffy was furious when he heard about Nami's quest. Why didn't she just told him and her friends? Then he remembers he also has a secret that haunts him most of the nights where he sleep. Marshal D. Teach, he muttered. A man who's sworn to kill him after eating the devil fruit accidentally. He was under Ace's command when he was moved into 2nd Division commander, not that he fears for his life, but the feeling of someone wanting to kill you, no, the feeling of hatred was what he felt every night. Luffy, let's storm and kill this bastard. Sanji said, lighting a cigarette. Zoro smirked, truly excited to meet his opponents. Usopp was shaking terribly. Outside Nichiko's house they saw the townspeople, with Nami. They were raging, shouting for freedom. They knew what Nami was doing for them, and now that the pirates have broken their vow, it's time they make the sacrifice for themselves. The crew walked towards Nami. She was there crying alone, as the townspeople have marched to the so-called Arlong Park. Luffy approached her, crouching. He looked at her in the eye, and that grin he gave, that beautiful grin, was what made her felt hope. New feelings stirred up inside her. Clear what those feelings are, she didn't let them get out for now. From there the crew walked towards Arlong, which was Nami following them silently. At the door the townspeople, led by Gento, a man with many stitches, was blocked by two familiar figures. If you get in there, you'll all die, he said. We're gonna fight them. The Marines here are corrupt, and I will know. Gento was stopped by a hand. Let's wait for them, the other man said. Gento was now confused. What are these two acting all heroic in front of them? Who? Gento asked. The man with a headgear jerked his head, and all of them look at them. 7 figures approaching Arlong Park. That man in the middle, wearing a suit and a red shirt, the man with the shade said. Move. Luffy and the rest, except Usopp, didn't notice that it was Yosaku and Johnny who was blocking the door. Inside Arlong Park, that's right, that bitch was crying ahahahaha. The laughter inside was silenced by the park's gate exploding. Arlong? Luffy said, his hair foreshadowing his face, only revealing one of his eyes, shot wide opened. Who? Circa before Arlong could finish, Luffy was already where Arlong was and sent him flying to the other end of the park, destroying the walls. I'm gonna enjoy killing you. Luffy said, his aura starting to envelop him. Robin, Sanji, and Zoro have taken their stance just past the gate. You'll free this town or I'll kill you and send you to God knows where. Fuck you, boy, I don't take threats. Everyone attack him. He yelled. Let me give you power, Luffy, a voice said inside his head, a voice so similar to him that he thought it was him or is it. Time slowed as Luffy nods a little. The ground was enveloped by darkness as it started to eat Arlong's crew. Eat was the word, not sucked, for the crew that was being sucked inside yelp in pain, shriek of fear, and the most of them yelling mercy. The crew, no everyone, including Luffy, was surprised. The crunching sound it made as the darkness hits everyone who was on it was truly disturbing. Achin, Chu, Karubi, with me now. As Arlong yelled, they were the only ones left of his crew. WW, what did you do? Arlong stuttering. Luffy shrugged, as if not caring, to those fishmen that was recently killed by him. You bastard. Arlong shouted. With me, he whispered to the remaining fishmen. Arlong threw at least 20 throwing knives, then dashed at Luffy. Zoro and Sanji are on towards their captain, offering their aid. Gotcha. Arlong said, jerking his head towards Usopp, Robin, and Kaya. The throwing knives weren't directed at them, it was to the girls and Usopp. Luffy rushed to their sides and tried to use his Yami no Mi, but to no avail. His devil fruit didn't work. Forced to make a decision, he grabs Kaya and Robin into a hug, shielding them with the knives. Then Usopp, who was standing still frozen by fear, Luffy was forced to kick him hard and out of the knives' trajectory. The kick made Luffy unbalanced and well, the knives hit him, most of it. Ahahahaha, Arlong yelled, looking at the pool of blood in front of him. Maram Marimo. Help Luffy. Sanji said, struggling at his opponent. TCH. The swordsman replied, clearly unable to help since he was facing an octopus with a fine swordsmanship skills. Usopp blocked the upcoming kick from Arlong, which was directed at Robin and Kaya, who was jerking Luffy to stand up and fight. I'm the brave Uoff. He tried blocking the kick, but Fishman was 10 times stronger than a human, knocking him out instantly. Arlong pushed the two women, grabs Luffy's collar and bites his neck with his shark-like mouth. Blood flowed as if it was a river overflowing. Robin and Kaya cried that Arlong should stop. Nami arrived, which she immediately regrets. Luffy was there in front of her dying. Robin sprouts her arms in an attempt to clutch Arlong's head, but he was too strong, his strength was not of a human. Oi, Zoro. Sanji. Help Luffy. Robin cried desperately. Oi, Luffy's supposed to be a Loja type, right? Zoro yelled back. As Arlong dropped the lifeless body of Luffy, a metal clanking was heard as soon as Luffy hits the floor. There in his hand looked like a cuff, except it was only on his left arm and no chains on it. That's Robin gasped. Kairoseki, Arlong said, coldly. Arlong was walking around the park as he removes the Kairoseki from Luffy. Be bad move, Luffy said, standing up with what's left of his strength. You're already dying and you expect to ugh. A hand made of darkness was choking Arlong of his breath and in a weird way his strength. I'll borrow your strength, Ace Sly smirked as he continued to cough up blood. Without strength left on Arlong's body, Luffy breaks his neck, killing him instantly. He pants as he struggled to keep his balance. You three, get out of here. He in his best intimidating tone. Thank you. WW, we will open a takoyaki shop, the octopus said. Robin instantly assisted Luffy. The townspeople rejoice seeing their town now freed after a long time. As he walks past Usopp build 3 flags, skull with a straw hat on it. 2 for the ship and 1 here on Arlong Park, signifying that from this day it's under my protection, and any man who declares war with this town, declares war with me. He said. Upon hearing this, the orange-haired woman started to cry and cry. The townspeople approached her and cheered for her. Luffy was assisted by Kaya and Robin to the ship's clinic. But before that, Luffy whispered something into Zoro. The swordsman and Luffy has a serious face. Zoro nodded and left in silence. What did you say to Zoro, Luffy-kun? Robin said, tending to his wounds. It was incredible that he had even survived. Most of the daggers hits his vital, but not to the point that it'll kill him instantly. Nothing much, he said, smiling as darkness covers his eyes. Mijiko was in their house, hearing the Marines arrived. Get the fuck out of here, scums. She yelled, they've called for Marines, and they kept on saying that Arlong was not threatening anybody. Where's the 100 million bellies, Miss A officer said, drawing his sword with a perverted look on his face. Gee, get away from me. Mijiko yelled and felt a splash into her face and body. There the officer laying down on the floor with a pool of blood, his head was cut off from his body. Zoro picks up the head and throws it at the Marines who were digging for the hidden money. Monkey D. Luffy sends his regards. Throwing the head to the Marine crew. Oh, and this is an island which is now under the Straw Hats. He added. As the Marines runs back in fear towards their ship. God, that felt good. The swordsman said. Thanks. Mijiko said, hugging him from behind. No problem, the swordsman said, blushing. Meanwhile, Sanji felt a disturbance in the world, as if he was the only one with no girls. That Marimo can't get a girl. He doesn't look like me, he thought, proudly making a face, seeing a woman walk as the party was being prepared. Mademoiselle. He yelled, chazzing the girls. Thank you, Luffy, Kaya said, both of her hands on Luffy's. It's no problem, he said, and there it is again, that warm grin. Kaya kissed Luffy on the cheeks as a reward. 3 of them had a red face, 2 were blushing, and the other was raging mad. Meanwhile Usopp felt a disturbance. I feel like I'm Sanji, he thought. Luffy? Every person on the island yelled, come down, let's party. Unfortunately they received a glare from a raven-haired woman and said Luffy will be there in a second. Man, what a killjoy that woman was. I mean Luffy should already be bandaged up and ready to party. Inside the ship, Kaya was on the side of Luffy's bed and on the other was Robin. Robin had no choice. The 2 of them fall asleep accidentally. Well, since a lot has happened today, she'll let it go. With that she lays down beside her captain and drifts to sleep. Tell me again, why is she here? Zoro said, cold as ice. Oh, you just shut up there, Marimo. Sanji said, protecting the orange-haired woman. Who you calling Marimo? Perverted cook. The green-haired swordsman said, banging their 2 heads in an attempt to overpower his rival. Thanks, Sanji-kun, Nami said, causing the blonde cook to nosebleed in a way no human ever has. The bloods that exited the cook's nose splashed towards the face of Zoro, in which case he tasted some of it. Bagging up the disgusting Euro blood. Disgusting, I don't want to become an erotic old man like you. It's not Euro if it's love, the cook said with a 100% pride in his posture and voice. Then once more he bleeds his nose, causing him to faint from loss of blood. Yawning, the swordsman then got into a position in the grassy deck of the ship and started sleeping as if nothing happened. Zoro and Kaya, who were simply watching, couldn't believe their eyes. The 2 men who were about to clash to death simply ended their fight. Whoa, the 2 said. Nami then sat beside Kaya and Usopp. The sniper then suddenly brags his new rifle modifications, long-barreled and 10 times the firepower while still remaining its accuracy and recoil, adding a magazine that acted like an automatic rifle and a sniper rifle at the same time. Wow, that's so cool, Usopp, Nami said, accidentally using one of her seductive tones. Hehehe, the loose nose said, blushing. That blush instantly ended when Kaya glared at him, as if being hit her by a 10-ton mallet when she started to walk up towards the captain's room. Usopp then sat there, feeling all sorrowful and sadness, as he cried there motionless. Nami soon followed Kaya. The 2 talked normally as they moved to Luffy's room. Yeah, we still haven't bought a bed for the girls' room. I was about to tell Luffy that too. Say ah, Nami and Kaya heard, entering the room with pure silence. There sit the captain and his first mate. Robin was feeding Luffy, and the oblivious boy had no idea what was Robin's intention. Cool as he might be, he has no chance to realize a woman's feeling. Nami realized that the food that Robin was feeding Luffy with was what Sanji gave to Robin a few minutes ago, before the fight with Sanji. Ahem, Kaya said, blushing at the sight she saw. Robin jerked back, realizing that she was putting on a show and there are 2 people watching it already. Wahm. Luffy said, his face turned towards the 2 who were in front of them. Robin's just sharing her meal, so what's up? Sharing her meal, huh? The blonde and the ginger thought. For you, maybe. Well, there's no bed for the 3 of us, and our next destination is Loguetown, which is a day's travel. The navigator said. Well, Robin has already slept in my bed, we'll just share it tonight, Luffy said, with no hint of other intention. It's kinda big, shishy, he added. Robin's entire face blushed even when her face poker face was still on. Nami and Kaya couldn't believe what they've just heard. How can he say that so loud without getting embarrassed? That was the only thing running into the 3 women's mind right now. No, he's not getting embarrassed because he didn't meant what he should have meant. Or was it he meant it but didn't meant for ugh? Nami thought, which Kaya was the same. Robin's kept her poker face with a smile, while her temperature didn't lie anymore. She was redder than the ripest of all strawberries. Do you know what you've just said? Nami yelled at her dense captain. Huh? What? He replied innocently. Look at Robin, she said, facepalming herself. The captain quickly turned his head and looks at his first mate, only to see that she turned away. Hey, Robin, he said, his head moving left and right. What's wrong? Up, down, left, and right. He moved his head, trying to get a glimpse of what Nami said. Unfortunately, by the time Luffy saw Robin's face, she returned to her poker face and a smile. Well, what's wrong with her, Nami? Only to see that Kaya and Nami had already left while they were in their own world. The events after that were typical. Zoro and Usopp trained as the long-nosed boy wanted to move faster and reload faster, aim and shoot faster. Unfortunately for him, he has a long way to go, a long way. Supper and everything happened. Zoro was to take the watch duty tonight, and Loguetown will be on site, should they keep sailing towards it. Captain's quarters. Why is he so calm now? When we first slept in the same bed he was all nervous around me, Robin thought, as the 2 were lying down the bed. A few minutes of silence and Luffy was now motionless, probably asleep. She had her chance. A hug she did, crossing her arm to his waist. Luffy jerked a bit, but then he relaxed. Her hand moves higher and higher up to his chest, where she felt a huge thump. There it is again, his heart beating so loud. She listened closely, not wanting to come to a conclusion, and there she heard the loud beating of his heart. Is he asleep? Robin thought. Dawn came, and the sun slowly moves its way towards a bright and beautiful morning. It was still cold as the sun isn't up yet, but for a certain raven-haired woman, warmth was all she felt. She slowly opens her eyes, still wanting to sleep some more. It wasn't the bed, wasn't the pillow, and it wasn't the blanket. It was then she realized that the comfortable and warm feeling came her captain, who's hugging her from behind. Not even the years of doing her poker face could stop the blush and the curly lips she made. It was beautiful, and that beauty was about to end. After making the last few minutes last, the captain woke up, oblivious as to what he just did. He sits on the bed mumbling something about food and Sanji to start cooking. He exited the door, again still oblivious that he had just slept with a woman, in which they did nothing but sleep. The woman was fortunate and unfortunate at the same time, fortunate that her captain didn't realize the smile she couldn't remove in her face, not to mention the redness. Unfortunate for she who was with him the whole night and he simply forgets. Sure, he didn't mean it, but can he be this much of an idiot? Robin Swyan. Sanji yelled, checking her entire body as if she was gravely wounded or she'd just miraculously escape a near-death situation. Luffy did nothing to you, right? The blonde cook said out loud, causing everyone to stare at her, waiting for the answer. The captain didn't stop munching his freshly cooked meat and he paid no mind to the tension rising up in the room, but he simply grabs the other's food, eating it in a rush with a bit of sneakiness. What made them all narrowed their eyes was the blush Robin couldn't resist. Remembering what has happened earlier, she smiled and replied a simple no. Boy, you bastard. What did you do to Robin? Sanji said, rushing to Luffy's side, his head all steaming. Nothing, I just hugged her, saying out loud, like it was a normal thing. The crew had their eyeballs full, but for Sanji, he had lost the motivation to move on. Zoro smirked, even though it wasn't his victory, seeing Sanji like that made him the happiest of men. What a dark heart he has. Nami then cut out the silence in the room. Would you do it? She asked, as Robin finally managed to gain her composure and sit down. Nothing, she's just all warm once again, he said it like a normal thing. Nami almost spits her soup that she was sipping. Kaya accidentally drops her spoon, causing her to pick it up and wash it in the kitchen, thus away from the peak of the topic that they were having. Robin gulped a small amount of soup, almost causing it to spill some in her mouth. Get up, hero cook, Zoro said, kicking him across the table. Sanji waved his lifeless hands, and then there he loses his consciousness. Their morning was the same as usual, Kaya reading her books about medicine. Zoro sharpening his swords while he was at the crow's nest, a place he was most comfortable with. Usopp was also there, trying to get the things he heard earlier away from his system, while thinking of great plans and traps that could help the crew. Sanji locked himself up, still in despair at what he heard. Nami was in her room, drawing up maps in which she recently told them about her navigation skills. Robin, as usual, was with the captain, on the deck of the ship, as the captain was sleeping in one of those beach chairs. Like Kaya, Robin was reading her book, a book she didn't let anyone see yet, however that didn't stop her from stealing glances at Luffy. The seagull drops at the ship, carrying lots and lots of newspapers and a fresh list of bounties. Luffy woke up at the noise that his crew were making, all gathered up in one place. What's this about? Luffy said. Newspapers and bounty posters, Zoro said. Each of the members grabbed their own bounties, save Sanji of course. Each of them was surprised and was taken aback by their bounties. How you know title 10 million bellies, her picture was when she was still at their village. Usopp Eagle Eye 30 million bellies picture was taken at the party in Kokoyashi. Nami Cat Burglar 20 million bellies picture was taken before joining the Straw Hats. Baranoa's Oro Pirate Hunter 90 million picture was taken also in the party at Kokoyashi village. Naiko Robin Devil Child 200 million bellies picture was taken also at the party with Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy Decimator, ex-Whitebeard Pirate, brother of Fire Fist Ace, minus 550 million bellies. They all were amazed at their bounties, though it mean that they've finally made a name for themselves. It means a lot more dangerous opponents and trials will face them. However, one poster seems to be missing. The crew searched for it and finally, what the fuck is this? Zoro said, simple and cold. As they looked at the wanted poster of Sanji, it was just a drawn-up face of his, not to mention the poor details of it. It was far from looking like him, it was like the ugliest person in the world. Each of them staring against one another. Should we show? Luffy said. No, the crew repeatedly said. Monkey D. Luffy has wreaked havoc across the islands of Konomi. He and his newly recruited people have come and set the islands into a chaos. Captain Izumi has died bravely, his head was cut off from his body as he died bravely doing his duties. Monkey D. Luffy stated personally that he has taken control over the island and will declare war to anyone who attacks it. Marines has already sent an envoy to the Konomi Islands, only to see the ship burn down. It was Robin who was reading the newspaper. This man is no rookie, he had spent his entire childhood and pre-teenage years with the Whitebeards. Brothers with Fire Fist Ace, he and Monkey D. Luffy has already decimated around 300 ships on the New World. Under the training of Edward Newgate himself, this man is an absolute danger to everyone. Robin ended it. Just get the things that you want and let's get out of here. Luffy said, in a loud whispering voice. The crew formed a circle and nodded. They're too known to be lingering around in Loguetown, where Marines have boosted up their barricades and other defenses. Pirates from all blues have been caught and only a few made it to the Grand Line. Yeah, plus there's a storm that's probably gonna hit this place soon, Nami said, and with that they've all gone their separate ways. Nami went from store to store as she buys all kinds of clothings that are in her taste. After earning 100 million bellies, she at least got 30 million of it and left the money at Konomi Islands. Ever since Luffy declared it as his own, the Marines are gonna be sure to take over there. The money was to be used for the people of Konomi. They aren't gonna declare war on the Marines, but the Marines aren't gonna help them anymore either. Sanji was the one responsible for the foods, and since he's the only certified chef around, he knows food better than any of them. The cook got into the marketplace and started searching for good ingredients. After he bought the good ones, he had a sack 10 times his size, most of them are meat, ordered by a meat-loving idiot. Usopp and Kaya were together, searching here and there for surplus, while Kaya checks out equipments used in hospitals. She had her backpack full of books and small equipments, while Usopp holds the much heavier ones. The boy only bought 2 things, a red robe and 1 cool goggles. Zoro was obvious, he immediately got into some shops that sell swords of all sorts. However, he found none of them to be better than the ones he had. Just as he was about to leave, he saw a really great sword displayed at the very man who was the owner. Approaching immediately, he saw another blue-haired woman asking the owner to let her buy it. There the woman pulled out a book full of swords with their names on it. Zoro immediately got the feeling that this girl might be more than a sword freak than himself, and he has 3 swords. The man pulled out the sword of its sheath and saw Zoro's eyes. "You there, I'll give it to you if you promise to take care of it," the old man said, which instantly made the dark blue-haired woman furious. This guy doesn't need any more swords," she yelled back, properly fixing her spectacles. The red metal used she was stopped midway. "There's no red steel," Zoro laughs, "so does the owner of it, that's blood, it's a cursed sword," Zoro said, smirking. The man nodded in agreement, which left the woman speechless. The man grabs back the blade and handed it to Zoro, which he graciously accepts. Just as he was about to leave, the woman twitched as if she remembered something. "The pirate hunter?" she said. "Huh?" he said, his voice hinting a bit of nervousness. "See ya." As if a bomb exploded, he started to run for his life to warn his crewmates, which made sure for the woman that he really was the pirate hunter Zoro of the Straw Hats. Grabbing a smaller den mushy, she contacted someone. "Captain Smoker, we have pirate hunter Zoro on the run. The others might be here as well," she said. The man said something to Tashigi, and she then left to chase the green-haired swordsman, who's worse at directions. Luffy was on a clothing store, looking for some clothes, seeing a black cloak with golden embeddings. He was about to grab the cloak when Robin grabbed it first. He wondered as to why was Robin with him. "Hey, don't you have something to buy?" Luffy asked, as the 2 of them heads for the counter. "Nami told me she can buy that for me, plus you're going to need my help to choose a bed for us, the girls I mean," she said, in her usual tone. I see. Luffy just shrugs any thoughts he had on the matter. After quite a long time, Luffy and Robin finally got out of the bed store, in which the shopkeeper told them that it was good for you know what. Luffy, oblivious to the terms he used, he just answered yes and okay. Well, the one beside him felt seriously uncomfortable with the shopkeeper. Then, just as they'd planned, they are all there at the plaza, except for Zoro. There stood the structure in which Gold Roger was killed. Luffy looked at it with a smile. "I'm gonna become the Pirate King," he said to himself. All of a sudden, alarms and bells ring and ring, again and again. Marines swarmed the town as they were looking for something or someone. "Sanji, take these, I'll get Zoro," he said, as he rushed them all towards the ship. "Luffy, I'm coming with you," Robin said, as the crew started to disappear in their sight, which was also caused by the storm that suddenly hits the town. Heavy rainfall envelops the entire area. Seeing 10 feet of you is already hard. Luffy already made a choice. It's either Robin catches up with the crew, where she might get lost, or she stays here with him, so he can also protect her much more, help him search for that misdirected fool. As if by fate, they saw Zoro still running around looking for the right way. "Zoro!" Luffy yelled, as he holds Robin's hand so she doesn't get lost. He kept running and running, until the young captain hit something, soft, comfortable, and bouncy. He fell on the ground, and as he looks up, he saw a slim woman, holding a huge iron spike club, and right beside her a familiar face, Clown's face. "Aren't you a cute young man, having the guts to dive head first in my breast," she said, proud of her slim and tender body. Luffy didn't mind her or the clown beside her. He once again grabbed Robin's hand and makes their way to Zoro. The 2 of them was united with Zoro. As they start to run, a thick white smoke got in front of them. "Go, I'll handle this," Luffy said. "Where is he? We have to leave now," Sanji yelled. It's been 10 minutes since Robin and Zoro arrived at the ship. Even with the roaring sounds of the storm, the waves crashing into their ship and into the land, and the raging wind, they heard Luffy's footsteps louder and louder as he runs towards his nakamas. He jumps high and landed right into the ship's deck. "To the Grand Line," he yelled. Meanwhile, "What the hell are you doing here?" Smoker said as he faced a man in green robes. "And a man visit," as his voice was cut by a large and loud thunder. Smoker's eyes widened in disbelief. "That can't be." The journey towards Grand Line was exciting for the entire crew, the danger and excitement that the reverse mountain gave them. Arriving at end of the reverse mountain, they saw a huge, and by huge a really huge whale who's called Laboon. The whale blocked the path towards the Sea of Grand Line. In this case Luffy had to beat the whale, not kill or hurt him too much, just enough for him to move away. After those events, Luffy painted the insignia of the Straw Hats and promised him that he'll be back and fight him once more. The Straw Hats continued their journey towards Alabasta. Luffy decided that visiting the king of Alabasta would be good, plus it'd bring them back some memories. As the crew was on the way towards Alabasta, they were surrounded in a blizzard, a really bad blizzard. They struggled to get out of this shitstorm, that is until Robin fainted on the ground as the entire crew moves their sail up and down. "Robin," the young man yelled as he desperately carried her into his room. Luffy, Kaya, and Robin were the only members not out there trying to steer the ship out of harm's way. Robin's face and condition was getting worse as the minutes passed by, her breathing was labored, and her body red and hot. Luffy felt so useless, so much power and strength, and he can't even save her. Kaya did her best to slow down the rising temperature as she too never saw this kind of sickness before. She starts to panic as none in the medicine books she bought or read before had an answer for it. Outside the blizzard, Nami's voice was roaring so loud that it could compare to the wind blowing outside. "She took while Luffy is not here." Then Kaya suddenly suggested that an island called Drum Island was near. There was no map, but after their weeks of journey, it was mentioned on the book that it's no so far from the reverse mountain itself. "Nami, look for a Drum Island," Luffy said as he got outside. "We're already on the next island, look at the log pose," Nami said, and there stood a snow-covered island. There was not a single person outside. Docking their ship they saw a small town nearby, their huts have smokes coming out of it. Luffy knocked violently at the door. There stood a woman with 3 children, probably her son and daughters. She and the children are scared to death. The freezing temperature would sure make you shiver, but their faces tells them there is something more. "Is this Drum Island?" Luffy asked. The woman nodded. "Good, then here is where the best doctors are." Luffy said, "Please help us." He added. The woman made them enter her house and explained everything. "The pirate attacked us, his name is Wapol. Drum has been kingless before, but we still live in peace and harmony, that is until Wapol arrived and took control of all our doctors. Dalton, my husband, is leading a group of militias, and they are currently fighting him right now," the woman said. "Please, help us," she begged. Luffy smiles and nodded. "Of course, but if my friend here is not treated now, then she might die," he said. "There is a legend about an old woman treating people of their sickness. They tell us that she's the best doctor there is," she said, "but since a war is happening right now, I doubt that she'll come down here for some time." But," Luffy said, taking a look at Robin who's being carried by Sanji right now. "Where is she? I mean, where does she live?" Luffy said, not a hint of giving up on his first mate. "At the castle." She stood up and pointed it outside the window. "There," she said, "even with this snowstorm out there you can see the top of the castle's figure. You guys, go help her husband." "Zoro, take care of them." Zoro nodded. His dense captain might be an idiot sometime, but he knows when to be serious, in which had earned his respect. Zoro and the rest of them got into their fur cloaks and was led by the woman towards his husband's camp. Luffy took out every fur cloak he could find and wrapped it around Robin, layer after layer. Luffy only wore one. Walking in that 4 feet deep snow was gonna be hard if he could barely move at all. So he started walking towards the castle, not 10 minutes of walk, and his body is starting to feel numb. Deep breaths he made, his lips were turning into ice, but that didn't stop him. He continued to walk with every strength he got, his arms turning blue from the frostbite. Taking a quick glance at Robin, he marched once more, but the castle didn't seem near even after an hour of walking. At this point even his mind was lost, he couldn't tell where he was, he just kept walking and walking, using Robin as his strength. He has to keep moving forward, his vision starts to blur. He suddenly trips and falls down, his entire body was just not obeying him anymore, it had reached its limits. But the desperate move, he grabs Robin and hugs her tight, the least he could do now was share his heat till the blizzard ends. Little did the young captain that a pair of eyes was watching him. The figure shyly approaches them, there he saw Luffy losing his consciousness. "SS save he repeated again and again. The boy doesn't seem to know what he was doing anymore. What Luffy last saw was a figure slowly approaching them, enemy or not, he's gonna ask for help. Dear," the woman said, as Zoro and the crew approached a man in a green furry cloak. After the explanation, the man called Dalton was furious about letting some kids go out in this kind of weather. What choice do we have anyway? What kind of enemy are you facing? Zoro asked. Wapol, he's eaten a Baku Baku no Mi, which allows him to eat and consume it and turn his body into a weapon. After the introductions with Dalton, Wapol appeared with two more men, a man wearing a jester clothing and a man with an afro. Demanding the surrender of everyone, Wapol threatened the entire drum if the militias didn't surrender. Suddenly both sides were now taking fire from each other. Zoro, Usopp and Sanji are on towards Wapol and the other two beside him, which looks like his lieutenants. Jess, Karamarimo, handle these two. Wapol said, referring to Usopp and Sanji. Jess and Usopp faced each other as bow and rifle fought, accuracy and speed. Arrows and bullets met as each fire they take was marked on each other's head. Usopp ran out of bullets. Chess smiled. Checkmate, he said. As he ignites his arrow, there stood Usopp already pointing his pistol at Chess. Yeah, checkmate, Usopp said, as he fired his pistol. Usopp already planned this from the beginning. Chess knew that when rifles run out of bullets, it'll take time for them to reload it. That's why rifle user never got close to anyone. However, that is the trap itself, luring Chess into a comfortable zone where he think he'll win. Karamarimo clashed as feet and fist hit each other. However, the constant move names Karamarimo said made Sanji laugh. Ahahaha Marimo. He said, pointing his finger at Zoro. Zoro had popped a vein and had a sweat drop, his eyes closed. Shut up, you perverted cook. He yelled back as he sliced the cannonballs that Wapol fired at him with his cannon hand. The two Straw Hats continued their fight, but not without insulting each other. Robin's paw. My eyes started to open as I felt warm and cozy. I look around me, I wasn't in the ship anymore, the walls are made of stone. And the last thing that I remembered is we were caught in a nasty blizzard. Then I noticed a small figure on the side of the door, watching me. Oh? Hello there. I said, smiling at what seemed to be a humanoid raccoon. What a cute raccoon, I said, chuckling more to gain let him feel comfortable. I'm not a raccoon, you idiot. He yelled, then he ran back towards I don't know where. How could I, if I don't even know where am I? I stood up, still feeling a little weak, but sure a lot better than the last time. Room after room, it's full of books and medicinal equipments. Then I saw an old woman who was just simply sitting there as she looks outside the window where the snow was falling calmly. Excuse me? I said to get her attention. She turned around me and frowned. You should rest for now, your boyfriend will survive, don't worry. She said. Boyfriend? What boyfriend? I'm used. Who? I asked. Young boy, same hair color as you, a bit shorter than you. It hit me, there was only one boy that has entered my mind, well Usopp did, but instead of saying black hair, she'd probably talk about his long nose. Where is he? I asked immediately. Chopper. She yelled, and there stood the raccoon. No, I don't know what that thing is also. Show her the young man's room, she said. I am a dear. He yelled, then instantly calming down, leading me down the dark hallway, in which the dim sunlight was its only source of light. He's in a much worse condition than you, he's had 10 frostbite all over his body. His heart has failed for a good 3 minutes, but it was good I found you two at that time, he said, in a doctor-type tone. Then I look at Luffy, and in that instant I regretted looking at him. His entire body was pale, parts of his skin was black or blue, which was probably caused by the blizzard. What happened? I said, my voice was starting to break just by looking at the condition he's in. I saw him carrying you towards the castle. He never stopped walking even when the winds made me chill. The little reindeer said. He kept repeating to me save her again and again, even when he's lost his consciousness. Dr. Korea said it was common for people to mumble something when they are in this state, so he's gonna be fine, the reindeer added. Please just a moment, can you leave us, I said, I won't be able to hold it anymore. The reindeer says he'll be back in a few minutes, Luffy needs to rest, he says to me. The instant he left, I cried. Again and again, nobody ever did that for me. Nobody made that kind of sacrifice for me, I was afraid that I'll lose him. Just seeing his state, it feels like he's just moments away from dying. I can't lose him, though the doctor did said he'd be fine. No, I needed him to wake up now. I kissed his lips, his entire body felt like ice, no it was even colder than that. Bro Robin, Luffy mumbles. Why yes, I'm here holding his hand, I knew he still wasn't awake, but the least I could do right now is tell him I'm alright, so it's his turn to be okay. Where am I? The boy said, he groaned, his eyes started to open slowly as his vision tries to adjust from the blinding light. He woke up in a room where flask, books, and different chemicals were in. His bed wasn't that huge and was not that comfortable to be in. He hears footsteps and some shouting. I'm not cute. He heard as its footsteps got closer and closer to him. Come with us, I'm sure we'll need someone like you. You said it yourself, you want to see the world, right? A very familiar voice he heard. I'm weird, I'm a reindeer human, he said. Luffy might have not known whose voice it was, but it was sure as hell that he knew the woman's voice. He stand up even though his body was weak and numb, he just had to see her doing well. Robin and the reindeer, whose name was Tony Chopper, were walking down the hallway towards Luffy's room. They were just gonna check how Luffy was doing. "Hey," Luffy said with a smile. His voice was weak and so does his body. "You didn't have to feel what he's in for right now, but by just looking you will see how hard it would have been to move." No words came out of her mouth, she just jumps at him and hug him. Falling down, the two locked their eyes for a moment. Luffy was smiling and Robin was in tears, the water that came out on her eyes were falling on Luffy's face. Luffy," she said, again and again. That was until Chopper interrupted and told Luffy that he still has a fever and it would be bad for him if he stressed his body more. It has been days since Robin woke up. The crew arrived at the castle except for 2 people. Zoro, Nami, and Kaya also took refuge in the castle, while Luffy hasn't waken up yet. As for the other 2, they were in the village where Dalton lived. Being called heroes might have hit something in their brain. Usopp once again told stories about how strong he is and how brave he was. He even told them that he let Luffy become the captain because he pitied Luffy. Sanji was now the handsome and hot hero of Drum, as many girls were head over heels for him. He was put into a day in the hospital due to excessive amount of nosebleed. Thus the blonde cook had to suffer an entire day in his room full of male nurses and doctors. Another day has passed and Luffy was now fully healed. His unknown sickness was cured by Chopper's mentor. Each members had their own time with Luffy. Nami was unbelievably worried as well for Luffy. She cried for reasons she did not know too, simply saying she was worried sick for him. It was the same for Kaya, she simply cried and told Luffy how worried she was. Zoro told Luffy about the conclusion of the war and might have a little smug on his face as he told the story on how he defeated Wapol. Luffy laughed at the face Zoro was showing. It was like, "Just you watch, I'm gonna beat you someday." Still, the young man was proud at the few years older swordsman. Among his crew, Zoro and Sanji had so much potential of becoming stronger and much more. Usopp visited as well. He told his captain how "Please just agree at what I said to them haha," and didn't explain much. For just a short amount of time, Usopp became a stronger person thanks to Luffy. He was once a coward and a liar, but now he's just a liar. Luffy chuckled and nodded in an agreement with Usopp. The long nose smiled and said his goodbyes. Sanji visited Luffy for like 3 minutes. When he arrived he said, "How are you feeling?" And when Luffy answered back, the blonde cook started on talking about his true love waiting for him in the village. Saying his goodbyes he dashed outside the room yelling different names and how they will wait for him. To Robin, she never left Luffy's side, even when food was served. She would eat inside the room and feed her captain, Nami, and Kaya tried to tell Robin that she should take some rest and let them watch Luffy for the night. But no, she asked the 2 women outside the room and told them something. The day has passed and Luffy was now ready to leave the island, going to their original destination, which is Alabasta. There was just one more problem, Chopper. Luffy already agreed that Chopper should come with them, not to mention it would help Kaya a lot. But as much as Chopper's face says he wants to come, he didn't want to. Dr. Kariha finally said something to Chopper about how he should move on from his passed away friend. Locked up feelings were finally released as Chopper cried the entire afternoon. He kept on crying and crying about his passed away friend. The Straw Hats watched and waited for their newly found crewmate to leave with them. Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji had so much more to take care of in the ship. First was to remove the thick ice that has formed up in the ship, second was to resupply their food, since they still had a lot to go to towards Alabasta, and so many more things. Robin and the other girls waited for Chopper, which took him another day till he got over his cries. "Yosh, let's go," Luffy said, as everyone was inside the ship, including Chopper. "Wah. He's so cute," Kaya said. "I know, right?" Nami retorted as she steals Chopper from her. "He really is cute," Robin said, as it was her turn to hug him now. "I can't breath." Chopper struggled to say something as he was being choked from all the hugs that he's receiving. "That damn raccoon," Sanji said, all fired up. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the Jinouga for writing that awesome fanfic. See you in the next video. Goodbye.